So remember when I was talking about Sojourner Truth, and I mentioned a project that she was working on where she attempted to secure land for formerly enslaved black people. Okay? That project is typically referred to as 40 acres and a mule, right? But 40 acres and a mule has an official title. Technically, it's called Special Field Orders Number 15. Okay? And it was a wartime order proclaimed by Union General William Tecumseh Sherman. That's important to note because it was not the United States government that issued this order. Instead, it was a wartime order that was declared by a Union general. I make the distinction because it was not the United States that finally said, hey, let's give some land to the former slaves. No, it was General Sherman. Okay? Now, 40 acres and a mule, or Special Order Number 15, provided for the confiscation of about 400,000 acres of land along the Atlantic coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Okay? Now, this land was to be broken up into parcels not more than 40 acres wide, big, not more than 40 acres. Okay? So the initial order didn't include a mule. It just provided for 40 acres. Later on, the mule was added in an effort to help, I think it was 18,000 formerly enslaved and free black people with the farming. Okay, so General Sherman is like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give the formerly enslaved, black people land. He tasked a General Saxton with implementing the order. Okay. Now, on the surface, it seemed like a win-win, right? Black people are like, yeah, we deserve to own this land that we have been working on as slaves. We think it's ours. And of course, various political figures were backing them up. They were in the amen corner. At the same time, you have all these displaced former slaves, displaced black people who had gone to fight on the side of the Union. All of them displaced, nowhere to go, nowhere to live, no way to make money, no way to, care for their family. But ooh, look, here's 40 acres, and we're even throwing in a mule. Now, this seems ideal, right? I mean, they were inhabiting. Some of it was good land. Some of it was land that nobody actually wanted. Okay, let's be real. Nobody actually wanted it. But, we make it work. Mm-hmm. So ideally, this, would be reinforced and would set the template for, I'm going to say the term reparations for black people, because that was about all we were going to get, okay? That's a whole different discussion. Anyways. But there was a small hitch. Just a small hitch. We have former Confederate soldiers, the people who originally owned the land, coming back after a war that they lost, wanting their land back. Okay? Now, under the wartime order, they're not getting their land back. But the tables turned their way for two reasons. One was what, we had already discussed it. It was a wartime order. It was not issued by the United States government. It was not issued by the Union. It was issued by one man who assigned one man to make sure it got implemented. That's number one. Number two, changing presidents. So we know that President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and upon his death, his vice president, Andrew Johnson, became president. Now, Andrew Johnson was sympathetic to the South. He was sympathetic to the rebel states. That was a term I saw in my research, rebel states. And he was, sympathetic to the Confederacy. Yeah. And he said, as long as you take an oath of loyalty, you can have your lands back. The land that is currently inhabited by former slaves. You can have that back. So they had to submit an application to get their land back. Now, General Saxton, remember, he was the one who was tasked with implementing 40 acres and a mule. General Saxton and his staff, whenever they got an application, they were like, denied. Denied. No land for you. So what ended up happening was that Andrew Johnson and his allies managed to oust General Saxton. Once that happened, Johnson was able to install someone who was going to approve all the applications to have land returned to their former Southern owners. Again, displacing former slaves and free black men and women who had been fighting for the Union. Now, I will say that a lot of black people did manage to keep their property because we know that a lot of black people were able to buy the land outright, and some acquired the land through homesteading. But still, a greater number of parcels were returned to their former Southern owners, thus ending 40 acres and a mule. Also, setting back any attempts of generational wealth for black people. I'm not saying it's the sole reason. I'm just saying it's a contributing factor.